Material for the brain. Conversations for thinking bodies. In this show, together with our guests, we explore different ways in which we can develop a meaningful relationship with our bodies and minds and respond to the current state of the culture in a quest for more integrated and embodied perspectives. Hello and welcome to Material for the Brain podcast. I'm a little bit sick right now, that's why my voice sounds that horrible. I wasn't sick while I recorded the episode, so it's only going to last for the part of the intro, and I apologize for that. Before we start, I have a short announcement. For the Movement Lab study groups that are taking place in Vienna, we are holding an online info evening at the 8th of May. So if you want to learn more about the Movement Lab and about our programs, I highly recommend you to join this information evening that will cover a lot, and it's a good opportunity. You can head to our website into the study group page, and there you can sign up for the info evening and you will be emailed with all the relevant information. Okay, and the guest for today is Eran Dorfman, who is a professor at the Department of Literature in Tel Aviv University and a former director of the program at the Collège International de Philosophie in Paris. He specialized in 20th century French theory and literature, Continental philosophy, phenomenology, and psychoanalysis. He is the author of several books, of which the latest is Double Trouble, The Doppelgänger from Romanticism to Postmodernism. I met Eran last summer while I was teaching in the Freiburg Contact Festival. We found ourselves delving into a long conversation about body philosophy, politics, and more. We are both very intrigued about our parallels, him being a professor of philosophy who is interested in dance, and me being a dancer who is interested in philosophy. I knew right away that I would invite him to the podcast to continue our conversation in this public format. In our conversation, we talked about the potential meanings behind the phrase being connected. We talked about the body-mind split, about the biological reality of the body and its implications. We talked about the tensions between the universal and particular. We talked about how to deal with dichotomies while thinking, and much more. It was really a big pleasure to exchange with Eran, and I hope you will enjoy it at least as I did. And without further ado, here is Eran Dorfman. Hello, Eran. Welcome to my podcast. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Matan. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Actually, I'm very excited about having this conversation with you. I was planning to do it much earlier, since the first and last time we met each other was during the Freiburg Contact Festival, and I was very inspired by our conversation there. And I thought immediately, okay, I should expand it in the format of the podcast. But then life happened, and the disasters that have been unfolding in the Middle East kind of prevented us from meeting. And I'm super happy to finally have this opportunity. So where do I catch you now? I know that you are in Asia.
Yes,
no?
Right now I'm in Kathmandu. First of all, it was a pleasure for me also to meet you at the Contact Freiburg Festival. And so it was very inspiring conversation for me too. And it's a pleasure to speak, to create these bridges, gateways between philosophy or academic life and more embodied life. And this is the topic of our conversation, I guess. Right now, so I'm in Kathmandu, Nepal. I took a sabbatical year actually just to explore the South Asia, especially India, and to find new ways of thinking, of feeling, of touching, of being in the world. So it's a very inspiring journey. It's been like 7 months that I'm out of Israel, fortunately, because this is in this way I missed the war. So I feel nice here in South Asia, in peace and in my exploration. Yeah. So maybe we'll talk about it later, because I think that this journey also changes some of my viewpoints insights that I developed earlier. And I think that when I come back, I will need to think how to integrate all these insights into my my writing or my thinking.
Beautiful. So maybe as a starting point, I would want to invite you to tell a little bit to the audience who you are, your background, what you do in academia, and what you also have been exploring on the embodied field. So let's start with that.
Okay, so I'm teaching philosophy and literature. I'm at the literature department of Tel Aviv University. I'm a professor there. And I try to create the links between philosophy, literature, psychoanalysis, and other disciplines. I've always been a very interdisciplinary person. I learned in an interdisciplinary program in Israel. Then I went during my master's studies to the UK for a term, PhD in Paris, then came back for postdoc, went to Berlin, then found a job at the literature department at Tel Aviv University. My PhD was in philosophy, and it was from the start it was on the body. Actually, it was on the body in Merleau-Ponty, and Lacan, the psychoanalyst. And I think that I've always tried to create bridges. I think that this characterizes me, someone who tries to really create bridges between disciplines, between entities, between people, between myself and others, between languages. So I've worked in many linguistic environments too. So I think this is what makes my journey interesting. This is what makes journey also difficult, because sometimes I get lost in all these environments, all these languages, also the embodied language, the academic language, other languages. I think it's much easier to be just a normal academic in a certain way, just to do your research, but it's very boring. I cannot do it, so I cannot be like a normal academic. And I fully assume this position, but sometimes it's challenging.
Yeah, I can identify with the desire to make bridges and integrate. It's also definitely something that is very prevalent in my own work right now. And it's curious enough that when we got into conversation, I didn't know anything about you. And, for some reason, we got attracted to speak to one another, and then to see how much common ways we have in what are we trying to actually bring forth in the world. That was very beautiful to experience when I got the reading material from you after we met, to see how much we have in common in the way we think and look at the world. But despite that, I think we are anchored in very different experiences. Someone who is working in academia who is attracted to the body, and somebody who is working in the dance field who is attracted to the mind, so to speak. Eran, so since I have been reading the material that you have sent me, your latest book and some articles, I want to give you a bit of a chance to also bring the audience with us into the latest thing that you've published, and kind of what are the theses that you're bringing forward through the book.
Okay, so from the beginning of my research, or my academic career, so-called, I was very interested on the relationship between the body on the one hand, and between everyday life, and how we can explore the body or perception, body in a very in a large sense of the term, in our everyday life, how we can live a better everyday life. What bothered me always in the books that I read or in academia, that people talked about the body or perception as it should be, but not as it is. They said that, we should see the body as this and this, or we should create this and this relationship between body and mind. Okay, but what are these relationships right now? And then if I ask these people about it, they say, oh, no, it's not about philosophy. This is sociology, or this is psychology. So I try to think theoretically about, or I'm still trying, about how we can, in our everyday life, implement insights about the body and about also other things. This is why my first book, which was my PhD. As I told you, it was about perception in Merleau-Ponty, but how to implement it. And I used in our life, and I used psychoanalysis in order to find some solutions. Then I wrote about everyday life, and it was a book about the everyday life. It's called Foundations of the Everyday. And my last book is about the figure of the double, which was a surprise for me because I didn't think that it was a very interesting figure, the doppelganger. But then I realized that actually we have lots of repetitions in our life. We repeat many, many things, and we repeat not only in time, but also in space. In space, in the sense of that I look in the mirror, so I repeat myself, or there is a double of me in the mirror. And I am in relationships with friends, and I'm looking for myself there as well. So I'm looking for repetitions everywhere. I think that human beings are people who like habits, who like repetitions, who are very conservative. And therefore they look for the same everywhere. But then they also need the new. They don't, if we were only in the same, we would be all alone, very static. So we want something new, but we want it to be new, but not too much. We want it to repeat something that we already know. And I find, or my suggestion is that the doppelganger is a way to find a compromise between the need to be, in a way, myself, but also not to be with others. So I think that people that we love, for instance, in a certain way, we're always looking for something which is similar to us. We're always looking for doppelgangers or doubles, not completely, of course. If it was completely, it would be identical. It would not be a doppelganger, which is something which is me, but not me. The doppelganger, I suggest, is not like a copy, an exact copy, but something which resembles me, which echoes something in me. And I'm looking for myself outside. I think that we are creatures who look for themselves outside. Some of us are looking for ourselves inside, but we always need this outside in a certain sense. And my book was an endeavor. It was also a personal. You read some parts of it. Each chapter I'm writing about a personal experience. So I gave you the chapter about the shadow. And for me, the shadow is really related to our shadow is something that we try to repress. It's in many cases it's our physical body. And I find, or in this chapter, I'm trying to think about my academic career as a way sometimes to run away of the body, but trying to get back to it. So how do we get back to our shadow? How do we unite with our shadow? So this is one example.
By the way, I kept reading further into the book, so I also went into the next chapter and read about your love stories in Paris, which I found which I also found very inspiring. Okay, so first I want to kind of, before we dive into the topics, I want to bring kind of a meta question. It's like, what made you in your particular life to be attracted to the body on an embodied level? Because on one hand, you chose an academic career, which, as far as I imagine it, because I've never studied in academia, I can imagine it has to do a lot with reading, writing, but not so much with sensing into the body. So what made you, first of all, have the desire and the wish to work on the body as a topic, and also to cross into the space in which you are interested in experiencing through the body?
I will be very psychological. I think that as a child, I had several physical problems. I was a weak child. I was operated when I was 7, like I had a heart problem. They needed to fix something in it. I was a lot at home. I was very short. Now I'm not short, but I was a very short, skinny boy. I was not very good in sports. So the body was something which was a problem to me, always a problem. So I didn't really like it. I didn't know what to do with it. It was not a source of pleasure so much. And on the other hand, I was very, very good at school, at studies, reading, writing. So my intellectual capacities were very good. And I think that gradually I tried to combine maybe these two spheres. So I think that I'm still good in reading, writing, thinking, but I think that we're always working, or we're always attracted, sometimes implicitly, to something which poses a problem, which makes us suffer. Today, I think I like my body more or less. I'm quite connected to it. We met in a contact festival also, which was really great. So I'm doing a lot of activities which are connecting to my body, to other bodies. But what I'm trying to do when I'm writing about it is not only to connect to my body, but also to maybe apply something in my deep understanding of what it means to have a problem with your body, and to try not only to solve it for me, but to others. I think that these two spheres, I mean, in philosophy, it's very, very common to detach mind and body and mind, or soul and body, and to say, just the soul is the only thing which is important. Many philosophers are not embodied at all. I mean, for instance, when I came to Paris, I remember that I worked on Merleau-Ponty, who is the philosopher of the body. I mean, he was one of the first in the 20th century that really dedicated philosophical works to the body, without trying to say that it is not important. No, on the contrary. But many philosophers worked on the body, or worked on Merleau-Ponty, were again very disembodied. And I found that what they are saying also is very disembodied. That they are praising the body, but in a very abstract way, that they don't have any attitude to it, and this, or any direct approach to it, I would say. And this made me really, really angry. Really, emotionally, I felt very angry, because I felt that it is a blame for our discipline. I mean, people should talk about something they understand. And then gradually understood that I should write about it in a different way, in a way that implements my experience, or live experience. This is why I chose phenomenology, which is a discipline in philosophy which tries to connect more to the things themselves, to the world, to the body, and trying to spread some more fruitful thinking. And fruitful thinking is always a thinking which is related to your life, not something which is completely detached from it.
So in a way, you would say that like you're anchored in a certain pragmatic way of thinking about the body that is applicable to the actual experience of living in a body, or is it still like, to which degree like you're interested in like drawing this kind of hard-on conclusions into the ground?
I think we are always moving between poles. And I think that what I found is that the secret is not to say we should be this on this or this pole, we should be completely our body, we should be completely our mind, but to understand the movement between the poles. So when I try to apply, or to say something which is more practical or pragmatic, as you say, it's more about understanding this movement, that our life is between, we can be like completely depressed, not being able to go out of bed. And in this way, our body is like a burden, or something which is like a rock that is really very heavy. And in other moments, like in contact dancing, or like we're very ecstatic, or lovemaking, or if it's good, so we can be very in the flow and very dynamic. So many people would be tempted to say, only the second one is good, and what I should do is to teach people to go to the second one. But what I'm trying to say is not. I think that we should really understand this movement, and that illness or sickness or depression or negation of the body is a part of the game. And rather than condemning them, or say, okay, cheer up, or stop with your self misery or something, we should really understand why it is that especially the body, not only the body, I think it's life, but our life is embodied. Why it makes us so many problems? Why it's so problematic to be all the time in this ecstatic dance or in this ecstatic attitude to ourselves and to our bodies? And this is in the core of my research, personal and academic.
So could you kind of outline what does the word being connected means for you? You say that person is very disconnected from themselves, or like I'm very connected to myself. What does it mean for you?
Okay, so myself or the body, it's not exactly the same thing. I think that there are many people who are very connected to themselves, but they are disembodied people, and I respect that. I think that there are people for whom the body is not a problem. The body is just there, but they are more cerebral, or they are more into something else. And I'm not like that. So I don't say that they are not connected to themselves, but for sure they are not connected to the body. I think that if they have a problem, and many of them do have a problem eventually, this problem is 99% is related to the body, or even 100% is related to the body. So, because I think that if you are very disconnected from your body, it means that you don't pay attention to it. It means that you use it as a tool, use it as an object. You try to manipulate it, try to control it. You're angry when it's not functioning right. You go for every problem, you go to the pharmacy. In pharmacies we have shelves for every problem, and you just medicate yourself rather than really understand the problem from the inside. So all these things are ways to be disconnected from the body.
And what is the distinction that you may? Can you expand on the distinction that you're making between the body and the self?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I can be very connected to myself, but I'm not interested in my body.
Yeah.
So what is what is this? So I think like we are kind of entering into this dichotomy between the body and mind. Like how do you make sense of that?
So I think that we're embodied creatures. Okay, human beings are animals, but we're also intellectual creatures, and this allows us, contrary to animals, to disconnect from our bodies, but not necessarily to disconnect from ourselves, because we can be very, very intellectual. Myself, I remember the last months of my PhD, when I wrote it, I was like very in an intellectual adventure. I was very ecstatic. I was all the time sitting in a library and just writing. And I was writing on the body, but it was not a very embodied adventure, but it was a very good one. It was a good one, but I think that the problem would be if it lasted like for years like that. And then my body would start to rebel. My body would start to say, hey, you forgot me. But I think that as human beings, we have the capacity, we have the possibility to disconnect from our bodies, but not necessarily from ourselves, because ourself is more than the body. I think that in order to have a good life on the long term, I think that we do need to find for the body the right place in this life. And in this sense, this being connected to myself and being connected to the body would be the same thing. But there are some periods in our lives that it's not necessarily so. And I think that, once again, it's okay as long as it is not like it's not becoming like a repression of the body.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I hear, and I think that it's kind of maybe always on the foundation of the discourse about the body, is this kind of the finite nature of our biological bodies, and kind of you bring it like with this notion of like, okay, at a certain point, whether you like it or not, there would be a problem, and then you would have to face your body. And it seems to me as if it's kind of underlying the way you think about the notion of like problems and connection. So what, and that also brings me to think about the the fact that like in certain cultures, and now like you're in the East, there's also like a very different relation to the physical body, but still it despite the fact that the body is being treated different, it doesn't feel that disembodied. So what do you think this kind of underlying condition of the body, what is the role that they are playing? The fact that like no matter what we do, we're gonna, the body will disappear and the body will die, and how does that informs or disinform the way we relate to the body?
Yeah, wow, it's a very good and complicated question. The body is the messenger of death for us. I mean, it's the body is going to die, and the body is, we should say, like Heidegger, the philosopher, said, the body, we are always dying. We're always dying. It means that we're running towards death. We are always like in the process of dying. Every time cells die, although also they are born again. But the body is the messenger of, or is the center, the focal point of finitude for our lives. Whereas our intellect, our spirit is sometimes can play immortal. And almost all religions that I know speak about the immortality of the soul in a certain sense, or the Messiah will come, or just the soul. Many people believe in life after death, or life between deaths, or that we've been here many times on earth. And then the body becomes like just a random factor that the soul needs to find a body, and it gets into the body for like the body is the host for, it can be for 10 years, or it can be 8 years or 100 years, until it gets to another body. The problem, I think, with that is that what it means to be a soul without a body. What does it mean to be a disembodied soul completely? Let's think about, for instance, the singularity movement. It was very popular several years ago. Now people are not talking about it too much. These people that had their university also in the States, and they're talking about transferring all our knowledge to like hard disk or something, and then in this way not to die, because it's either we will not have a body, or the body will be like, with mechanical organs that can be replaced or implemented. But once again, what? So
digitalize your soul.
Sorry?
Digitalize your soul.
But what kind of soul would it be? I mean, if we were like in a computer, like there was the film, I think it's called Hair, about someone who falls in love with the computer. Yeah. Right. So and then they're trying to meet through another body. So the body is like something that we cannot escape, because it's our soul. Also, our soul is even if it was independent. I don't know if people say it's independent. In this life, the soul is completely embodied. I mean, it's all the time in connection to the body, and there are many researches about it. How much our thought, our illnesses, our emotions are related to physical things. And if I change posture in the body, I can feel differently. Okay, so the body all the time influences the mind or the soul. So for me, there is no much sense to think about a soul without a body, and I think that these speeches come from the burden of the finitude that we feel. It's not only death, like in the future, that we know that we are going to die, but it's all the finitude, the lack that we feel all the time with our body, because the body all the time is hungry, thirsty, horny, in pain. All the time the body needs something. I mean, there are very few moments, maybe when we are asleep, that we feel good, or we have a very good meal, or we had a very good sex, or we had like a very good, instant, and then like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 hour, we feel very good, and then again, there is a funny quote from Kierkegaard, the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, that I like a lot, and he says, there was one point in my life that I really, really felt happy. I was so happy at this point. Finally, I was happy. And then a fly came on my nose, and once again, I was not happy. And I never found this moment again. And then he continued and said, I want to know who's the manager of the world. I have some complaints, and I want to file them to this. Who's the manager? So who is this manager? And to whom we can file complaints. In a certain sense, the manager is the body, because the body manages so many things that we cannot really control, and we can complain, but it will not work. And our Western society does lots of efforts in order to fill in the gaps, to allow for as few pain as possible, as few hunger as possible, as few needs as possible. But why are we so afraid of these needs or these pains? Maybe it's a part of being embodied. So, yeah, lots of Buddhist or other meditations focus about just accepting, letting go and accepting the physical sensations without trying to complain all the time. Because these complaints make us suffer a lot. And these complaints make us disconnect from our body, because the body becomes, maybe as it was for me as a child, a problem. And then we just try to heal it externally, but not internally. And the problem on the long run will just get worse.
Okay, I want to bring forth with you something that I've been thinking lately, and that again has to do with the topic of trying to bridge between dichotomies. So on one hand, we have the proposition that the body is not the mind. And we can find it in, as you said, like in many Western philosophers, but also like to some extent in Eastern traditions, like what you brought. Like I remember experiencing a certain Tibetan deaf meditation. And the first thing that it starts is like with the saying, I am not my body. So, okay, there is the body, I'm not the body. The body is just this vehicle that carries me through the world. And now I can pay attention or not pay attention, but I'm not the body. And I think that like the problems that comes with that dichotomy is kind of, we started to explore them a little bit. I think the main problem that comes with that dichotomy for me is that to some extent, and it's hard for me exactly to quantify it, I'm experiencing the world through my body, and that shapes and that informs the type of emotion I will confront and the types of physical experiences I will have, and that is not completely separable from the attitude that I will develop through the world. So like it influences. So it's hard to say like I'm not the body. It's not me, because it really affects the way I experience and think about life. So it plays a role. So this is one dichotomy, and then there is the answer to it. Like, so I am my body, and then like I've been. There's a teacher, maybe you heard about Nita Little, one of the kind of famous early generation of contact improv, and she kind of starts to say body-mind, not the body and the mind. It's just one thing, the body-mind. We are body-minds in space, we are nervous systems, all this approach that we cannot escape our embodied nature, so we are that. But there's a certain deterministic kind of danger in that thinking that like, okay, if I am the body, and then like whatever I'm experiencing in the body is directly translates to the life. And I think that there is to the mind, there is a certain potential, again, deterministic nature, as if like, okay, if you just correct your posture, your energy will flow better, your mind will be clear, you will be happy. Like that kind of linear thinking that like, it's everything is already predetermined in how you relate to the body because it's connected to the mind. So then, if you eat unhealthy, you cannot be happy. Or if you, and it has a little bit of a top-down thinking, as if the body is, as if we can predict everything about the mind through the body as well. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is the integration between these two dichotomies, between I'm not the body and I am the body? And what is the integration of these two perspectives?
Excellent, really excellent. I really, really connect to what you're saying. I'll give maybe an example, because now I'm in the East, and I was in a Buddhist monastery, and I found a book about Buddhist Tantra. And I know Tantra Tantra in the West is more about, sexuality and playfulness and all that. But Buddhist Tantra actually is like, it's more it's like the Kabbalah, it's like the mystical, it's in a certain sense, it's like the more opulent, more like darker practices that Buddhism has. And in it, I mean, the assumption is that actually you will get enlightenment not by negating the body, but you can get enlightenment, but it will take you much, much, much more time than if you try to get enlightenment through the body. And this really blew my mind. I mean, because I was practicing Buddhism, and for me, that was always bothering for me in meditations, that observe the body, but don't identify too much. You're not really the body, and no sexuality at all also, and lots of interdictions, lots of, like you say, top-down things. Whereas here, I think that the solution is a bottom-up approach which wants to go to the transcendental sphere. I think the transcendental sphere is, how would I define it? It's like the ecstatic sphere. It's like being fully in the world. It could be like with God, but it can be also like, like you say, the body is everything. It's also, in a certain sense, you can say it's it wants to make you fully feel yourself or be yourself. And I call these things like like the full experience, like transcendental experiences that transcend your everyday in between position. But in order to get there, you cannot just say to people, do that and that and that, or you're not the body, or you are just the body. It's more about playing between these poles, and I think that playing with the body in order to better connect to your soul, or playing with the soul in order to better connect to your body, this is the solution. And I think that there are many practices. So I mentioned some of them, like religious practices, but not only. But the thing is really to not to have recipes and to say only this is right, because this is never correct.
Yeah, I can fully resonate, because I think, I'm coming from the field of dance, where I think people put central importance to the body. And what I've noticed through the years that to some extent, the notion of, I'm going to connect to my body becomes a prison in and of itself. Because on one hand, like you said, like, okay, if you're disconnected from your body, you will confront problems. And then maybe, I mean, the way I like to phrase it is like, you won't have the operating manual to the machine you have created. And that's obviously a problem, but also like this notion that I'm so connected to myself that everything that doesn't feel right becomes a limitation. Exactly. And I think that it's also a very tricky way of living in the world, no?
Yeah, I think that we're complicated creatures, and just to want to be fully something it's very related to what I said at the beginning. My problem that I'm always interdisciplinary, and I say that maybe it's easier to be like a pure academic, just to believe in one way of writing or one way of research. But life is more than that. Life is more than that. And personally, I find that people who just preach to one thing, you can learn a lot from them. I think it's fascinating to be like a retreat or like a workshop with someone like you describe. But the disappointment will come sooner or later. You'll be very, very disappointed from them, because they would not be able to relate or to contain the complexity of life and your complexities. So there will always eventually, I mean, if you find like a guru like that or a teacher like that, or there will be a violent splits sooner or later. And I saw myself also in my life, but also around me, how it ends. So I think that it gives lots of power to these people. I admire them. I'm not like that. I cannot be like that, fortunately or unfortunately. But it gives lots of force to these people, because they're focused on one thing, on only the body and only this body. And I found a method, and if you follow this method, you'll always be like in your full life. And but what happens when it doesn't work, or when people are ill. So they start to be very annoyed, these people, and no, don't do it, and then problems start.
Yeah, I have the feeling that and that's an intuition, which that this kind of way of thinking is something that, if the body can teach us something, is to embrace contradictions. and I think that it sounds to me a bit like that maybe you kind of have a certain proclivity for non-ideological thinking, and that this kind of because I have the feeling that maybe that's my personal quest, or which is informed a lot about my Jewish identity, funny enough, that I have really the fear of totalitarianism, and that's something kind of that I think that is. So I'm thinking always what are the things that I do in my life that transform me slowly into accepting a system that tells me how to think, and I think that there is something about embracing contradiction that can kind of go against it. And the moment you start to build a certain temple of beliefs around how something should be, then the split happens. That the moment that you differentiate between what is and what should be.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I would not say contradiction. I would say I would use the word multiplicity, I think that we have multiple aspects in us. And it's not that they contradict each other, but they move between each other. So I think that the contradiction is when you say either or and you start to fight. But I think that we are moving between aspects. And once again, in my book about the doubles, it was really, I started with one double. I find my double and I want to kill it sometimes, because this is how many plots in films and books are like that. I have an enemy. But then gradually I understood that we have lots of doubles in ourselves. We have lots of identities, and we have lots of doubles and aspects and identities outside. It's so difficult to accept it, because it means that we are not one. We are not simple, very clear being. I think that to want to be, for instance, a soul which is moving between bodies and reincarnating in bodies is a way to solve this contradiction, to say I have one soul, but I have several bodies. But I think that if you have several bodies, you also have several souls. So it's the thinking of the one, of exactly what you say, totalitarianism, is the thinking of the one, of totality, which is a way to control thing, to have a very simple identity, to reassure yourself. But life is not one. Life is many.
So let's dive into that topic, and maybe you can kind of elaborate. Maybe we can start from the difference between the self and the shadow.
So the shadow is actually all that we put aside. We have not only one shadow. I mean, in this chapter that we're talking about, for instance, I analyzed a story about someone whose shadow, who sends away the shadow, and the shadow is revenging upon him and kills him. But actually, the shadow, I would say, is everything that is not comfortable for us. We want light in the sense of clear things. We want clarity. We want very clear shapes. We want to know something very binary, maybe masculine or phallic thinking with clear shapes. And the shadow is everything that threatens us. And it's very easy and tempting to just try to ignore the shadow, or wants to kill the shadow. But actually, I think that the shadow is so interesting. I mean, darkness is so interesting. So many things can happen in darkness. And the shapes are more interesting. We can play with shadows. So this is, I think, shadow itself, for instance, it looks like a contradiction. It looks like a dichotomy, but actually the self is composed by many shadows and one clear thing that says, no, it's me. You are not me anymore. But this thing is just trying to protect itself. This thing is just trying to cling into clarity. But this is not right. This is not true. And not in the psychological level, in the ontological level, in the epistemological level, and all, intellectual words that I can say.
I mean, there's one sentence that it kind of it really captured my attention, and I'm retranslating it from Hebrew back to English, so I might quote you wrong, which light does not eradicate the shadow, but exposes it. And I find it like super interesting because like first physically, that's pretty true. It's like the moment you don't have light, you don't have a shadow, and or like the shadow is not appearable. And like if you have many sources of light, and I'm thinking kind of like, I'm thinking now with the choreographer mind, if you put a dancer on stage and you put like lights from different direction, you will create multiple shadows. And that's something that is like interesting because I wouldn't say that that you put many lights on yourself, you create many. What is the opposite in the shadow? The self. You will like the light version of yourself. Like if we have multiple shadows, do we have also multiple the opposite of our shadow?
I would say it's the I, the entity which says I. And which normally doesn't like the shadows, and because the shadows is everything that is threatening the I. I think that, for instance, when we follow
the I is like sorry, so the I is like the way I understand the identity that I've constructed to myself, yes. And the shadow is everything that would threaten that. Construction.
Yeah. I don't use self because self, in Jungian psychology and other like also in Hinduism, the self is bigger than the I. The self is much bigger. The self is what connects you to everything in the world, and the true self is, in a certain sense, is a transpersonal self. So Jung was very influenced by the East, and he talks about the process of integration that you need to go throughout life, especially the second part of life, after the age of 40, that he says, okay, until the age of 40, you need to say I, because you need to have a career, you need to establish yourself. But if you stick to that all your life, you will be miserable, because this I is disconnected from the world, not only from oneself, from the world. And if we relate it to the body is very sensible, and the body is made because the body is made of the same material as the world. Yeah, the body is made of the same material as other bodies, but also the body is made of water and other molecules that are everywhere around. So being truly connected to the self, which means to the bigger pictures, must go through the body, and this bigger picture in a certain sense must contain many shadows, in the sense of what is shadow. Shadow is the raw material. Shadow is everything that didn't have a very clear shape in ourselves. Something that is out there saying things, but murmuring things. But I don't want to hear, I don't want to listen, because it's not a part of my clear identity. So this is why I think that integrating myself is integrating with the body, with the other bodies, and with what we can say the self in a bigger sense of the world,
And so one thing is, there is also another split that I've read in this chapter about the body, and that the difference between like the essence and appearance. Yeah. So how does that translate to the notion of the I and the shadow?
So this is, when I wrote about essence and appearance, it's a dichotomy that philosophers use it, because appearances from, for Plato, for instance, the famous allegory of the cave, we live in a world of appearance, because the body is something which is ephemeral, something which belongs to appearance, and we must go out to the light, to the sun, get out of the cave or the cavern. I think they call it the cavern, and go to see the sun. And the sun is, in a certain sense, something which is above the body or beyond the body. So this is like the essence, whereas the appearance is just, the ephemeral bodies. And I think I criticize this dichotomy. I say that if we try to find only the essence without the appearance, so once again, the appearance is all the shadows that we say, oh, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. I want only the essence. But the essence, there is no pure essence which is not contaminated by matter, by appearance. I think once again, it's not a question of getting into the essence, but it's integrating and understanding that essence is composed by appearance, and appearances, if they are just disconnected from everything, like on Instagram, with no essence at all, once again, it's something that makes us very miserable, because even if my Instagram profile is very happy, I'm not very happy. Okay, I created a very happy appearance, but I didn't connect it to the essence. And connected to the essence, it means to understand that body and soul, body and other bodies, me and the world, all these should resonate with each other. Does it make sense?
So, it does make sense. I think that in my work, the way I translate those terms, and that's something that kind of I started to use these words through reading the writings of Ken Wilber, and he will differentiate between kind of behavior and experience, where the appearance would be categorized under behavior, something that we could see how a person acts in the world, and the essence will be like what the person experienced inside internally that is invisible to us. And I think that like I think that to some extent the work that we are doing in the studio is to minimize the gap between these two things, so that like when you act in the world and you do something, how can you have the experience that connects to what you've done?
Yeah.
Now there is a certain, I think, again, trap there, because like is a certain behavior objectively should translate to a specific experience? That's something quite tricky to say in our postmodern world. But I would say like that on a practical level, I could bring it down into something that is more simple, and then it could be agreed on that like if you experience yourself standing straight, but then I record you and I can show you, hey, your spine was bent, then there is a difference between how you experience your alignment and what your alignment is. And then again, how to bridge between that, or like what does this simple truth tells us about more complex thing about behavior and experience? I don't know, because like there is this kind of you brought the idea of Buddhist meditation. I've done a lot of Vipassana meditation, and with the specific teacher that I got introduced to, I remember that he kept saying like, if you get angry, you're the first person that suffers. So there cannot be happiness in the experience of anger. So let's say if somebody goes crazy and go and murder somebody, that cannot be the experience of true happiness, because they are causing suffering for others. And that's very deterministic. Like happiness it's already defined by a certain idea or an experience. And I think to myself like, okay, if there is a certain gap that we can bridge between behavior and experience, would it inform us into more to a deeper degree of truth between those two things? Or at the end, we are stuck in this kind of postmodern understanding that, okay, look, everybody has their own experience, and any attempt to comment on it is already fascist to some extent. And I don't know if it's clear what I'm bringing up here.
Yeah, I understand you. I think you brought us up several things. So first of all, I agree that it's a question of minimizing the gap, but the gap will always be there to a certain extent. And sometimes when you read Ken Wilber or other philosophers or thinkers, you have the impression that they want to abolish the gap, and they want really to live a life which is maybe enlightened, which is great, but it's almost not a human life. And I think that we should be careful to not only to want to minimize the gap, but also to respect this gap and to say, let's see, this person behaves in this way, but he experiences it differently. And then you can work with how to make an interesting counter there. For instance, my idea of the double is resonating with that, because sometimes, in workshops, someone is imitating the other's behavior, and then so becoming one's double, and then the person has like a very special mirror, for instance. So this is one way, but it's important for me to insist on the fact that the gap is essential to us. If we want to overcome the gap, it means that we want to be like a superhuman, like Nietzsche's, creatures, like Übermensch, someone who is above all these, just living in the world like fully all the time. I would like to be like that. I would like everybody maybe to be like that, but I think that not only it's not possible, but putting this as an ideal can be dangerous.
If you enjoyed the conversation so far and found it meaningful, please consider to share the episode with others and to click the like button. These small actions might seem meaningless, but they are the fuel that helps the podcast project to move forward. Your attention and time is highly valued, and we would love to hear more about the insights you might have from listening to this episode. And please consider to subscribe to the channel to be notified for all future uploads. Okay, so I hear what you're saying about the gap and its essentiality, and when it comes to kind of not becoming too idealist and the dangers in that, but I still kind of left unsatisfied with the issue of this. What I call, maybe it's not the right term, but this kind of postmodern problem of this recognition that everyone has their own experience, and there are multiple, there are endless or infinite point of view on which we can look at something. So how can we claim or try to predetermine what certain behavior would be on a level of experience? And again, that any attempt to align something would fall under this kind of idealistic, that could become tyrannic way of dictating people how to be. But on the other hand, it's not on the other hand, but I'm a bit struggling with doing this work of bridging between these two extremes. On one hand, like, okay, there is an ideal reality and that we should aim to, and on the other hand, there's like just multiple endless perspective that we can see every moment. So is that something that you experience yourself, and that if so, like, how would you address bridging that or making a synthesis between these two opposing standing points?
So this multiplicity doesn't entail separatedness. On the contrary, this multiplicity is calling for communication, for even union sometimes. But that's the difference between in love. Two people who love each other, they must respect also the differences. Otherwise, it's not love; it's symbiosis. It's narcissistic symbiosis. It's two people who are melting into each other, don't recognize their differences, and then they just want to be one. And every time there is a problem, they become very violent. Yeah. And we know that we maybe it's the difficulty to go from falling in love to really loving. When you fall in love, you just fall into this, this fantasy of unitedness, of oneness, which is a fantasy that we all share. We were one in the maybe in the mattress as embryos, maybe in other lives, I don't know. But we have this very strong fantasy in ourselves. But we are not one, and we can never be one with everything, with the world. And I think that accepting that and seeing these gaps that you are talking about as the motivation for love and not as a motivation for suffering, this could be the solution. Because if there would be no gap, there would be no love.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, maybe it kind of exposes kind of the way I'm thinking, and that inside of me there is a certain part that wants to aim for this kind of absolute reality.
Everybody aims. Don't feel ashamed. Everybody aims at that.
And that's already quite a claim. and this kind of tension between the universal and the particular, I find it very, very at least I see it right now, like really playing a pivotal role in like a lot of the culture wars that I see around me, and like tension that can manifest in very aggressive way in actual lives of people. And I'm wondering, like, could you maybe expand more like on that proposed solution of like of what does love means in that case?
Yeah, so my current research is about love, so this is why I'm thinking about it a lot. And love, specifically, it's a continuation of the project on the doubles, because in love, in a certain way, you love someone who is like you but is not you, and there is a temptation to say, no, I want you to be exactly like me or like my fantasy, and then it's not love anymore, because you want to control, you want to swallow the other. How to overcome this temptation, not the gap, but the temptation to overcome the gap, or the temptation to want to overcome the gap. Because another solution would be just to go away, to say love is not for me, and then just to really feel very separated. We don't want that. We want the gap to be there, to be narrow, but also to be recognized as a gap, and to understand that the creativity of love and of every relationship is stemming from this gap. Because the gap is exactly what I don't understand. The gap is exactly what is beyond me. The philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, he talked about meeting with the other as meeting something which is infinite, and I cannot say anything. I should just welcome this complete otherness. Now, so I don't agree with him, because I don't think it's complete otherness, but there is an element of otherness that should be respected and should be seen as really, really the core of love. I can expand on that if you want.
Yeah, of course.
So what I'm trying to think about love, it's an ongoing project, it's an ongoing research project, but to think about it as a creative act in which two persons who meet each other try to create their own mutual memory. What do I mean by that? I think that when we meet someone with whom we fall in love, correct me if I'm mistaken, maybe, we feel a very warm feeling of familiarity, as if we already maybe knew each other before. It can come after like a while, but this warm sense of familiarity, I think it's very essential in order for love to develop. That we come from the same place. We were together sometime. We belong to the same universe. Oh, you did that, I did that as well. Like we are creating something in common, which is very strong. And this I think is the attempt to create this oneness, or this common origin that we all come from. Okay, maybe some people also that believe in incarnations, they say that actually my husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, we were together like 50 times already, and we just meet each other in every life, So it's just that repeating I talked about repetition, repeating the same experience, but in a different way. So I think this is the starting point of many relationships. But then comes the disappointment that you understand that no, that actually this person is very stranger, is coming from a different world. And then, it can be like the 3 months crisis or the 6 month crisis or the 7 years crisis, or you just stay together and you say, why did I end up with this person who is completely stranger for me? But why is this feeling coming? This feeling is the disappointment, is the inevitable disappointment that we are not one. And then there are two options here. First option is to be more and more disappointed, which make us eventually separate or just feeling separated, even if we stay together. The other option is to understand that this is the mystery of love, because we do belong to each other, but also we are different. And this otherness is really the point where I go out of myself. I go out of myself to the mystery, to the unknown, to what's there in the world, which is not me. And if I accept that, and if the other person accepts that, then we can create something together. Then we can really create our love in the sense that, okay, so what we thought, or the place we thought we belong to is not the right one. Let's think about another place, because it's becoming a game. Let's think about another common origin, or another memory, or another thing that unites us together, just in order to be disappointed again. So and then to create another one. So it's like an endless game of creating and recreating our common ground. It's really like in contact improvisation, to find a new contact point. And not to just say, oh, I don't want to play with this, to dance with this person, okay? Because he or she is awkward. This awkwardness, for me, it's like every time it's a lesson. It's amazing. When I dance, I mean, of course, I have the fantasy that it will be like a terrific flow with the person, and we'll just, it will be like a seamless dance. But the more interesting places is where there is something that doesn't work, and I try to understand, what is it? What can I do differently? How can I be different than my automatic pilot? And then this relationship is reinvented, and I become much more interesting and bigger.
I mean, it's maybe kind of, I'm really now jumping into really high into a meta perspective that I think human beings, and maybe if you don't agree with me, please share. I think that human beings aim for good. We have different understanding of what does it mean to be good, but we aim for what you say. We aim for like, nobody wants to be evil. It's like we want to act according to what we believe to be the right thing to do, and like maybe beside like certain really extreme personality disorder and stuff like that. I would say like that. But still, like, there's a lot of shit happening around us in the world. And what I hear from you, and it's something that I could really relate to on an individual level, and my kind of very particular relationship that I've applied with my wife and with my kids and with the few people that I've made clear choices to include in my life. But what I find very difficult is how to kind of expand that into something that is bigger than these choices, because it seems as if it requires a certain initial effort, and that it's much easier to see somebody who seems different than me, and then just to say, yeah, they are different. They will never be able to understand me. They are too far away, and to forget that kind of universal potential, and especially in the current cultural climate where like universalism is not on the rise but on the decline, I would say. So is there for you a certain way of thinking, theorizing, but also like embodying these qualities that helps you to translate it into situation that like that would be actually will help us to bridge or to minimize or to the gap between my eye and your eye, that is not predetermined by this particular individual relationship.
So maybe I can share a story. I was in a Buddhist monastery in Bodh Gaya. This is where the Buddha got enlightened. And they asked us really, I mean, there were like signs there, not to kill mosquitoes, not to kill any creature, but also not to kill mosquitoes. And then they explained that that also mosquitoes were once, maybe the mosquitoes were your mothers, or because they believe, in infinite reincarnations until you get enlightened, and to different animals also. So the mosquitoes that bite you, actually, maybe in them there is the spirit of your mother, or even yourself. I don't know if it in a different yourself, not because I don't think they believe it can be simultaneous, but they have this practice in order to become a bodhisattva, to have the spirit of the Buddha, to imagine that all people, but all creatures around you are your mothers. So this is genial because it takes the universal, all people, the universal aspect, but it takes the particular aspect, because your mother, your own mother. It's not like a mother, a divine mother, your own mother. So if you think about others as now, let's speak not in Buddhist terms, as your doubles, for instance. Okay, you go out and you're being very narcissistic. Okay, I think narcissism can be like a very good solution if it's practiced in a good way. Very narcissistic. You see, everybody's your doubles, and you see, this poor guy, it's me as a poor. This angry guy is me as an angry. This woman there that is annoying me. And then you see reflections of yourself or shadow of yourself everywhere. Then everybody's becoming a part of you. So you like swallow the others, but actually you're getting swallowed by them at the same time. And then you must create different. Try to do it as a practice, or try. I say it not only to you, Matan, but to our listeners. Try to go out to the street, to maybe just think about like 5 minutes yourself. Just close the eyes and think about you and the world as your mirrors. And then you cannot behave or treat people as they are bad and I'm good. Okay, I agree with you. We are all good, but we suffer a lot, and this suffering transforms our goodness, our natural goodness, into badness.
Okay, I wanna challenge a bit the last proposition, kind of
challenge me. I was challenged by mosquitoes. It was very challenging.
No, but you brought something that, on one hand, like, look, that's a beautiful approach, how to bridge between the particular and the universal. But within the particular, there is the possibility, and I would say like the inevitability, that some individuals have really horrible relation with their mother because their mother were abusive and their mother were hitting them. And then, like, how would I expect that person to practice compassion to mosquitoes if they imagine the mosquito is their mother? They're like, why would they want to, like, so again, like, when we include the particular sphere, we include also the possibility, and I would say also the inevitability that for some people, it wouldn't represent the divine mother or this motherly quality that we are talking about.
Well, mother was chosen because there is a natural love between most children and mothers, but not all. I agree with you. I mean, and it's very complicated, and I'm the first to say it's a very complicated relationship between children and mothers. But I think that there is something that you wouldn't really want to kill your mother. I mean, for 99.999, you wouldn't want to kill even if you wanted, because as children we wanted to kill our mothers, we are horrified by that. And I think that this combination of wanting to kill her because she's annoying, she's depriving us of ice cream or of playing with friends or something, and I want to kill her, but I know that I love her and I cannot kill her. I think that this meeting point of two contradictory desires is something that we can adopt with other creatures or persons as well. It doesn't mean that I'm smilingly, like in a very cheesy way, going there and no, because I agree with you. It's complicated to be with a mother, but there is love there. There is similarity there. There is a common origin. Common origin for me, it's really the key for love. What I said before, it's like and finding this common origin. And if the mother is not a good story for you, find a different story. But it's essential for our happiness, to find a common origin for us and the others. If you feel that there is no common origin, we feel alienated and we suffer a lot. It's like suiciding while we're still in life.
So, and maybe that's kind of a question. So to which degree do you feel that universality is something that is being undermined nowadays? Is it something that is just kind of in my own informational egregore, I'm stuck with that idea, or do you also experience it in like your own academic environment, that like it's more difficult to bring forth universal claims, and that like to attempt to go into a space in which like we are all humans? Is that something that you feel like that it's become more difficult to bring forth?
I think there is a demand to introduce particularity into universality. There is a demand to acknowledge that we're all humans, but some are rich and some are poor, some are privileged, some are not, some are black, some are white, etc. And I think it's a good demand, because in the name of equality or humanism, many crimes have been made, because actually this saying we're all human actually was trying to hide the differences. So once again, acknowledging the differences, acknowledging the gaps is something which is a must today and always. But today, it's more out there. But then not to just focus only on the gap, okay? Not to only show the gap, and then because of these gaps we cannot communicate. No, this is not what I'm saying. But it's really like finding the balance, and I think that each one of us should find his or her own balance between the two poles. How to relate to others as equals to myself, and how to acknowledge the differences, and to see the differences as not so threatening, but as something that obliges me, which is good to change or to be different in a certain way.
Yeah, no, I resonate with that. I think it's really if I'm trying to listen attentively to the waves of our cultures, I think that it's really something that is I think the current wave necessitates that kind of listening that you're talking about, a listening that on one hand acknowledges the fact that there is a space which we can meet, and at the other hand that we still carry the differences in that meeting point, and how could that be, and how can we play with that? And maybe to some extent I can resonate with what you said about the meeting in a physical way, and also discovering it there. But I find
it's just an example, because it makes it more easier to understand. But I think that this physical example, we can apply it to other spheres as well.
Yeah,
and our communication. And
I think like for me, because maybe I'm kind of maybe because I have the due to my professional background, for me it's very easy to apply it physically with people and to be in that place of curiosity for differences. And that's why I really enjoy dancing with people who come from different backgrounds. Or when I say backgrounds now, I mean not like on a level of identity, but I mean on a practical, like their training backgrounds, so that they would have different reflexes and different instinct of how to communicate physically. And then in that exactly peculiar space, I can discover something new about myself. But to apply it on a more abstract level that touches my identity, that's already a more difficult thing for me. And I see that like when I encounter ideas that really shattered everything that my identity is built upon, I'm going into defense mode, and I've seen it very often now, specifically around the events of the 7th of October. And I see it also in certain aspect of discourse around gender. And I really see like how certain ideas, they really, the gap seems so wide, so big, that it really aims to break what I'm standing on. And can you, I don't know, what do you think about that? Or do you have these experiences as well?
I understand what you're saying. I think that the more we feel strong and uncomplicated maybe about our identity, the easier it is to integrate multiplicity into it, and to see others to see the gaps, and as something which can be there and is very fruitful, because that's your profession, the physical field, and you feel you're good in it. I saw you're good in it, and you have self-assurance, you know what you're doing. So for you see gaps, you see differences, you're not afraid. Yeah, you integrate them, and that makes you even better dancer, even better choreographer, better teacher. Yeah, you agree with me?
Yes. Whenever you compliment me, I will agree with you.
Okay. And so now try to take this field and try to apply it to the question of, like more national or religious or, I don't know, identity. And try to see if you can feel more relaxed about it. Not just wanting to defend the pre-existing, which will not lead you far, but wanting to have an identity which is very clear, but because it is clear, it can contain shadows. Because it is, people who are afraid of shadows, it's people for whom there are lots of shadows inside. So they're so unclear, so they want just clear things. Yeah, that's the paradox. But if you're clear with yourself, you say, okay, I can say I'm a Jew, okay? But I agree with many, like, I criticize my country a lot. I feel that that my belongingness to other religions is also very strong, but it's not a threat for me because I think I can have, like, maybe because I'm in the East also on the because, and here it's very pluralistic. Because you can be whatever you want, and people will accept that. But I like it. To have not like fluid or liquid identity, but a solid identity which is liquid enough to contain other identities as well. Does it resonate for you? Or can you explain more the difficulty, and then we can talk about it?
No, I think I think like that there is a certain space in which, when like there is another sentence that I took from your writing. I will bring it up now. My being as it is written with the freedom of the other, or that I cannot fully determine how others will see me. So exactly in that kind of space between my own perception of myself and what my identity entails, and what kind of maybe values are embedded in that, and how the other perceives me, there is a certain tension. And in the most extreme case, I would say, like to hear people chant the eradication of your of the identity group you belong to poses a threat. And in that moment, to be able to anchor in those perspectives and not to get into a then I feel the urge to defend, and maybe that is a good instinct, but nevertheless, I feel like that there is a certain struggle in it, because in order to really come to a place of the common good, or a good that is beyond the particular, there has to be an attempt to cross to the other side.
Yeah. I think, okay, now I understand more your distress. I think that when people want to eradicate your country, for instance, I don't tell you, it's like you just contain them and just contain everything. But I think that just defending or saying, no, you're wrong, it's not something that will lead us very far away. As you quoted from my writings about our desire to see ourselves in the eyes of the others. And mostly we are, you talked about, your inner circle, people who look at you in a good eye. Yeah. They like you, they love you, you love them, and you reflect to each other the love and the identity, you reassure each other, which is great. But the challenge comes when the look changes and you see in the eye of the other not something which is very flattering, something which is maybe a criticism, negation, maybe a desire to eradicate you or what you represent. So what do you do there? So you feel so you feel so much I don't know maybe suffering, or you feel ill at ease because you see something about yourself in their eyes, and you know that they are right in a certain sense. They're right in the sense that they see you, but they see you in your very negative, in the worst perspective ever possible, okay? Or they see the country of Israel in the worst perspective ever, that maybe it would have been better if this country didn't exist. Which is maybe it's true, yeah, maybe it's true. But then you're not afraid of that. You're not afraid of that, and you say, okay, so this is one aspect of my of the way I look. Now, when people look at you in such a hatred or such a negative way, it is because they are suffering also, and because they feel that they were mistreated, or they want to treat you badly as a revenge again. So I think the point is really to build again this pact of gazes or of looks, and to say, hey, I'm also a human being. You want maybe to eradicate me, and maybe because you think that I want to eradicate you, but actually we need each other. We are in a certain sense doubles of each other. I need your look, but I want it to be positive. You need my look. You want it to be positive. You don't have a positive look of myself. You want to kill me. I see a negative look of you. I want to kill you. But if we kill each other, it will not be very good. Okay, we will not get very far away. So now the thing is how to reestablish the pact of the mutual looking. And I think that expecting the other to change, it will not happen. I think it's just to communicate your experience, your perspective, not in, but Israel, but you say, maybe you're right, but where does it put me? I'm part of it. So do you want to kill me personally? What do you want to do? And then people should all of a sudden look at you as Matan, maybe. And look at you as a particular person, which not only represent like an entity. And then the gaps are changing. And then we start to create something which is more interesting than just saying, oh, no, there is a gap here that we cannot really fill in. And we just hate each other. If you insist on being human and of seeing them in humans, I think that is where peace starts. And peace, as people said, is always with the enemies. You cannot make peace with your loved ones, because it's not peace.
Yeah, of course. No, it's a good thing. And I think maybe where I'm struggling is that is, again, since we cannot determine how others will perceive us, so, and to some extent, the ability to really bridge the gap, prerequisite that there will be that we will include the particularity of each other, but I cannot determine that because that's up to you. So that this space requires mutual effort.
Yeah.
And I think that you know that in certain cases this mutuality just doesn't exist. It's already you know, I see it sometimes in just, you know, I can have a moment where I'm arguing with my wife, and we just don't have that wish to come to a mutual place. We have the wish to argue, and then that's what is the result is happening. And I think that's kind of, in a way, that's just accepting that is already kind of accepting the lack of control and the lack of really agency about and it's a big challenge.
Violence is a part of human life, so we must accept our impulses to kill our loved ones as well, or our mothers, as we said before. But the fact that I have this impulse doesn't mean that I will. It's one of 1,000 impulses that I have. And then the problem is that people start to crystallize one impulse and they define themselves by this impulse, and they forget about the others. So I cannot control this in the others. I can control only myself, but I can show them that I'm not just an enemy, or I'm not just representing an entity. I'm a human being. You know, here in India, people all the time ask you the first question. You just go in the street. Hey, where do you come from? Hey, where do you come from? Hey, where do you come from? And at the beginning I answered, but then it started to annoy me. So I started to ask to answer by to be like making jokes like I'm from Earth, okay, from Earth. So there was some a child asked me, and I said, Earth, yeah, it's a small country. I heard about it. Very beautiful, very beautiful, very beautiful. Because what annoyed me, I think, is just I felt that they try all the time to define me, and not to see me as a human being, but just representing a country. And I don't want to be defined only by my country. So I tried to say, yeah, hey, I'm a human being, okay? So now quite often I say I'm from here, because I'm from here. Right now, I am from here, okay? And that it confuses people. They start to laugh, but it makes them go out of this tendency to catalogize, and to say you're bad, you're good, it's this, you're rich, you're poor, just to make people not understand, and then it forces them to be more creative, maybe, or more human.
I mean, what I take from like listening to you, and that's something that I think that was kind of crystallized during the conversation, is how much connection, like how much the building of connection necessitates the mutuality. So first to look for what is mutual, first to look for what is common, and then from that place we can move into the uncomfortable territory of friction. But if we start from the friction, that's a very, very difficult work. Hey, Eran, it's been really a pleasure to talk, and I think we can continue for a long time, but I would definitely could envision another conversation. And before we finish, I just want to invite you to share with the audience if people are curious about your writings and about your work, where they could find you. And I would leave all this information in the footnotes of the show, of course.
Okay, so my last book in English is called Double Trouble. The Doppelgänger from Romanticism to Postmodernism. So you can find it on Amazon. Double Trouble, and I wrote many articles and papers. Everything can be seen in my academia.edu profile. So if you Google my name, I think you'll get there, and there are many papers and ideas, and people also can write to me. I know on Facebook or Instagram, or I'm available, because as you understand, I like to communicate, I like to create connections, and it will be a pleasure to continue with you and with the audience.
Great. So I will put this in the show notes. So if for anybody who is listening would like to dive deeper into the writing and perspective of Eran, it will be there. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to have another embodied meeting.
If you want to see more precious and insightful moments, make sure to check our short clips playlist. To see longer interviews, check out the full episode playlist just below it. And to be notified for all future videos, click the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell. See you on the next episode.